What's up, everybody? Coach Zai here with the timeout. Going to do a little inside the huddle with Coach Zai. We're going to talk some hoops. And today I'm going to talk about my 5 most underrated NBA players and my 5 most overrated NBA players. So we'll start on the overrated side. Number 5, we're going to go with, we're just trying to think here. Right off the top of my head, I'm going to try to be as honest as I can in these huddles. I'm going to really, keep it real, try to tell you how I think. I watch a lot of basketball. So at number 5, I'm going to go with DeMar DeRozan. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, look at the numbers he puts up. He's been an all-star. He's doing well in San Antonio now. But you look at it, like the Toronto Raptors have gotten better. Now, Kawhi better than DeRozan? Yes. I don't think anybody would argue that. If they did, they're crazy. But DeRozan underachieved in every playoffs. Like, never. I mean, you think about it last year when they fell behind big time against the Cavs, and Toronto makes a run back, and DeRozan was on the bench, and Dwayne Casey kept him on the bench. And I said that was probably one of the reasons Dwayne Casey got fired, is because he didn't put his superstar back in. But that just shows you, DeMar DeRozan is a mid-range player. He's an ISO player. He's probably a poor man version of what Carmelo Anthony used to be. So I just look at it, you're not going to win a championship with DeMar DeRozan being one of your 2 best players. It just won't happen. So DeMar DeRozan goes number 5 for me. Just not a good enough shooter. A lot of ISO ball, a lot of mid-range post-ups. Just kind of what the game is going away from. And he just doesn't, you compare him to like a James Harden and, top shooting guards. And he just, I don't like it. I don't like him as a player. I don't think he can win at a big level. So in my opinion, if you're an all-star, you got to be able to win at the big level. So he's number 5, okay? Number 4, Jimmy Butler. Same thing to some degree. Not a great shooter. A lot of mid-range, a lot of pull-ups. Can attack the basket. Supposed to be one of the best two-way players. But everywhere he goes, they struggle. Fell apart in Chicago. Went to Minnesota, didn't work out. Supposedly played with 2 other, what could be all-stars. And then, comes to Philly, and they're just not looking good. They're not clicking. They're not playing well every night, in and out. So Jimmy Butler's number 4 for me. 5 and 4, pretty close to the same players, in my opinion. You look at it, not great shooters at the shooting guard position. They're both supposed to be pretty good defenders, but, at the end of the day, you got to be able to win. And, I can't remember the last time any one of them played in the conference finals. So, you can only say they're so far elite because they're just not at that level. So now we're starting to get down there, so I got to really think about these next couple ones. Number 3, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I truly mean this. Chris Paul. And he almost changed my mind last year in the playoffs because he was balling and then he got hurt. But what has he done? He gets all these stats and stuff, and I'll tell you right now, I think the Houston Rockets have played better without him. James Harden is much better without Chris Paul standing there. And you think about it, Chris Paul had Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, J.J. Redick. They were all on a team. Didn't achieve nothing. So I just look at it like for a guy that's supposed to be this elite point guard, this Hall of Famer, somebody, that Stephen A. Smith goes crazy about, all that stuff. What have you done? And part of being overrated is that at the end of the day, you got to be able to take care of your body. Like, one of the reasons I credit LeBron James so much is he plays so much. He's never hurt in the playoffs. Chris Paul always gets hurt. Always is missing time. And sure, you can say it's unfortunate and you can't, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to win the big games. And in my opinion, Chris Paul's never going to play in the NBA Finals. So how good can you really be? So now we're getting down to 2 and 1, okay? And it gets really, really tough here at this point. So I got my number 1. I already know who that's going to be. I really got to pick here my number 2. Still thinking. Give me just number 2. I'm gonna go with Ben Simmons, number 1 overall pick. Can't make a 10-footer. Hasn't made a 3-pointer. Again, Philly's loaded with talent. They're just Ben Simmons. Develop your game. His game hasn't changed since he's gotten in. You can throw all these flashy passes in transition in the regular season. You can get a few blocks, a couple of dunks. You can do all that BS. But at the end of the day, if you can't make a jump shot, there's no way you're going to beat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. And then you think you're going to go beat the Golden State Warriors? Not a chance. Just stop it. It's not going to happen. Ben Simmons, number 2 overrated. If he doesn't develop a jump shot, I'd be shipping him out of the house as fast as I could if I was Philly. Number 1 most overrated player. My number 1 most disliked player in the NBA. Plays for the Detroit Pistons, Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond has no post moves. Last year he was like, oh, Al Horford got an all-star. I should be an all-star. Not a chance. Al Horford is way better than you. Can't make a jump shot. His free throws have gotten better this year, but over his career has been a terrible free throw shooter. We see this in the summer. He wants to shoot these threes, and then he's even taken a couple in games. No. Get some post moves. Dominate on that block. Shaquille O'Neal was so good. He never shot threes. He dominated on the block. Andre Drummond should be dominating dudes. All he can do is pick and roll and rebound. Sure, he gets these 18, 20, 24-point games, or 24 rebounds per game. Sweet, but all you do is pick and roll. And now that you have Blake Griffin there, you guys should be dominating. And they're not. They're not putting their... So, Andre Drummond is the most overrated player in the NBA. And his time in Detroit should be coming to an end because the Pistons can't win with him and they got Blake locked up for a long time. They need to move Andre Drummond. But he is the most overrated player in the NBA, in my opinion. And that might not change for a while. Okay? Now, let's talk about 5 underrated players. Let's sit right there at centers. How about Steven Adams? Steven Adams comes in at number 5. Workhorse. Doesn't get talked about. When you talk about the Thunder, you talk about Russ. And you talk about Paul George. Talked about Melo last year. No. Steven Adams. He plays hard every night. He's going to get you 10 and 10 every night. He's going to get you effort on defense. He's going to offensive rebound. He's going to set great screens. And he's never going to draw attention to himself. Never. It's always going to be about the team, the larger outcome. Great player. Steven Adams. Number 4, Michael Conley. Now, contract-wise, sure, he's not overrated. He gets big bucks. Nobody talks about him being a top guard. I mean, dude's elite. Now, Memphis has went through some problems, so why is Mike Conley not in the top 5 point guards? They don't win enough. So sure, I'll agree with you on that part. But I really believe you could put Mike Conley in some other situations, and man, he would be a baller. He plays hard every night. He makes shots. He keeps that team in the game. Memphis just has no talent. Take Conley and Gasol off the team. They're not very good. Now they drafted Deron Jackson. I think he's a good young player from Michigan State. So I think they're moving in the right direction, but you know, I kind of hope Mike Conley gets moved and he gets a chance to play somewhere in his career where they can get back in the playoffs and he can compete. Because we've seen some playoff series when he has been in the playoffs, he balls. And I mean, he makes big shots. He'll go for 30, like Michael Conley, number 4, most underrated player. So now you think about it. Now you're in the top 3 of the most underrated players. This gets really tough because it's really hard to not pick. You know, you don't want to pick a superstar. You want to think about that guy. The pieces of what they do and stuff like that. So it gets really tough when you're thinking about that. So when I start to think about this stuff, I'm just looking at teams. I'm looking at what they do. Number 3, Danny Green for the Toronto Raptors. And here's why. Big shot maker. Not afraid to take the big shot. Plays defense, kind of same thing. Doesn't really get hurt. Plays all the time. I mean, I think if you really talk to the Toronto coaching staff, from what I've read, reports, he has been a huge key to their team this year. When he was in San Antonio, he was such a huge key. Some of their big runs, some of the championships they won, Danny Green went crazy. Made some big shots. I remember that one postseason, it seemed like he couldn't miss a three-pointer. And he'll defend. He can defend. And it's hard to find guys like that in the league. So Danny Green would be number 3. So now you're talking top 2. This gets really tough. I got number 1. It's always tough to pick number 2 when you have number 1 in your mind. So trying to really get me think of somebody really good. Just double checking. Number 2, most underrated player in the league. And this is a stretch. A lot of people are going to take it as a stretch. But I truly believe this man needs a big contract. Scary Terry Rozier. And here's why. The Celtics, statistically, have been better when Kyrie Irving sits out and Terry Rozier runs the show. Moves the ball, doesn't need ISOs, can shoot open shots, can make open shots, can make big shots. We saw in the postseason last year. Brings energy, plays with passion, competes, undersized, can still get to the basket. Good passer. Man, this guy needs a contract. And if I was a team, I'd be looking. Hey, if they're going to keep Kyrie, we need Terry Rozier to be the face, our point guard. Not the face, but our point guard of the future. Whew. Tell you what, put him with the 76ers right now. And, take out the drama. Markelle Fultz, put Terry Rozier in that. They'd be a lot different team, I'll tell you that right now. So I really look at that. I mean, that would be scary. I look at somebody like the New York Knicks. Go get Terry Rozier as your point guard for the future. Mix him in with Porzingis and Kevin Knox and a superstar that you can go sign. That'd be dangerous. But my number one most underrated player, doesn't get talked about enough, probably gets talked about more for his Twitter, Rudy Gobert. Dude shows up every night, plays great defense, not a great scorer. Doesn't need to be a great scorer, though, because he's a great rebounder, great screener, and a great defender. I mean, talk about the ultimate rim protector, Rudy Gobert. And he's a great player for Utah, and I think Utah's going to make a run at a playoff spot. The West is so loaded, I don't know if they'll get in, but if they do, he'll be a big piece. And you don't want to play them in the playoffs because they got pieces like Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, who balled out last year in the playoffs. And then you got Rudy Gobert. You cannot go in at the rim and try to do anything with him. I mean, he'll block everything. So Rudy Gobert does not ever get talked about. He should probably win Defensive Player of the Year every year. He is the most underrated player in the league. Talk about two complete opposites. Andre Drummond, the most overrated. He wants hype. He's like, oh, I should be an all-star. Rudy Gobert would never do something like that. So Rudy Gobert, the most underrated player. Andre Drummond, the most overrated player. That's inside the huddle. And the last thing I want to mention, if you haven't seen Coach K's inbounds play from yesterday, everybody wants to dog Florida State. What a great inbounds play. To use RJ Barrett as a decoy, dive the two players down, and get Reddish a wide-open shot. It was a great play. It just shows the elite level that Coach K's on. So we're going to be really breaking down stuff. I'm going to try to get in more of it. We might even watch some film on the show. I would love for comments, so tell me what you guys think. Want to talk about maybe some questions you have from a game, a team, a player. I'll give you my opinion. I'd love to do it. This is Coach Zai inside the huddle with the timeout. Love you guys.